Hello, my name is Roni Granot and I'm from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. I would like to thank the organizers and Niels Hansen for inviting me to participate in this symposium. Our study, a cross-cultural comparison of music versus other activities in achieving well-being goals during the COVID-19 pandemic, was run in 11 countries and 6 languages with many collaborators I wish to thank and acknowledge. Listening to music has been associated with many functions related to well-being across the lifespan. Many of these functions relate to regulation of emotions and arousal, as briefly presented in this slide. Other important functions for well-being relate to social functions, as presented here. In our study, we wanted to examine whether music could obtain these goals even in times of extreme stress, and whether it could be as useful or maybe more useful than other activities that could be easily performed during the lockdown. We also saw a very nice opportunity for a multicultural study, since the stressor was relatively similar worldwide and the intervention using music could be measured at the same time in all countries. Interestingly, there is very little data about music uses in a cross-cultural perspective, which is surprising given that music is both a social and cultural activity which could reflect the norms and behaviors of a society. So we joined forces with 11 countries and many collaborators, the names of which you can see here, and we obtained data. The number of participants in each country is presented here. Our countries could be divided into collectivistic versus individualistic cultures, a dimension often used in cultural psychology. Individualistic cultures value self-sufficiency, uniqueness, and independence. The countries that could be categorized as individualistic included Norway, the UK, Spain, the USA, Italy, and the Netherlands. Collectivistic cultures, on the other hand, value more interdependence, working as a group, and focus on families and community. Countries in our data which belong to this group include China, Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, and Brazil. We ran an online questionnaire using the Qualtrics platform, following a pilot that was run in Israel. You can see here the number of participants that we ended up entering into the analysis. The first part of the questionnaire included goals and activities that we defined. The well-being goals included venting negative emotions, diversion from the crisis, enjoyment and good mood, reducing loneliness and creating a sense of togetherness, and reconnecting to myself or detachment from the surroundings. Here you can see the interface that participants saw for goals that they indicated are somewhat important or higher than that. They were further asked to indicate for each of these activities how much it prevented or helped them achieve that goal. You can see here the list of activities that competed with music, information seeking, entertainment, eating or cooking food, physical activity, doing productive activities, reading or listening to podcasts, talking or socializing, engaging with things I like, and spirituality and mindfulness. The other parts I'm presenting here only briefly included a resilience scale, a mental health scale, personality traits inventory, questions about demographics such as age, gender, degree of religiosity, and where it's related to COVID, both in terms of economics and health. In terms of music use, I'm presenting only a number of questions here. We asked about musical training, time spent listening to music, and the type of music you listen to in terms of arousal, ranging from very calming to very activating, and music valence, ranging from very optimistic to very pessimistic. Note that we prefer the term pessimistic and not sad music, since it is known that sad music can elicit positive emotions such as awe and being moved. We also asked about music inducing nostalgia, participation in balcony singing in order to test the effects of this mood and feelings of togetherness. We asked participants to indicate a song or a piece that helped them cope during the lockdown. And finally, we asked how much is music important in your life. You can see here the demographics and music training aspects of our study. As in many online studies, we have an overrepresentation of female participants, about 2/3. The age groups are pretty much nicely distributed, except that the age over 65 is underrepresented, and about half of our participants do not have musical training. And now we go onwards to the results. You can see here the efficiency of music in obtaining the goals as a function of culture. In the x-axis, the 5 goals. In the y-axis, the rating of the efficiency of music transformed into a 1 to 7 scale. And we have the collectivistic cultures in red and individualistic cultures in blue. Horizontal lines represent the median and dots represent the mean. And you can see that overall music is very efficient in obtaining most of the goals or all of the goals. The mean hovers about 6, and we can see that music is less efficient in obtaining a sense of togetherness and reducing loneliness. And finally, we can see that there are very small differences between the two cultures. A bigger difference can be seen in the goal of togetherness, for which collectivistic cultures rate music as more efficient, but as we will see in the next slide, this is not specific to music, and they rate nearly all activities as more efficient in obtaining togetherness than individualistic cultures. In this slide, we see the efficiency of music in obtaining enjoyment, the left 2 bars in each square, and togetherness, the right 2 bars in each square, in comparison to other activities as a function of culture, with individualistic cultures represented in blue and green, and collectivistic cultures in red and purple. You can see that music is highly efficient in comparison to other activities. Sometimes differences are very, very small, and other times the difference is large. In terms of enjoyment, music was more efficient than all other activities, including those it was similar to, such as hobbies. And in terms of togetherness, naturally socializing was better than music, but other than that, music was as good as other activities or better than those activities. In this large table, we represent the outcomes of multi-level regression models testing which variables predict rated efficiency of music in obtaining the different goals. Here I present venting negative emotions as an example. In each model, we add more variables in order to increase our understanding of what predicts this efficiency. The first variables include demographic variables such as age, gender, and culture. And then we add gradually more variables such as the importance of the goal, the trait of openness to experience, the type of music listened to in terms of valence and nostalgia, and finally the importance of music. In the highlighted square, we have the full model when we add all the variables, and you can see that by far the variable that predicts most significantly the efficiency of music is how important is music in your life, the beta being 0.47. You can also see that there are other significant variables. Some of them, their significance Their significance reduces once you add music importance, assuming some relation or correlation between the variables, such as, for example, openness to experience and music importance. I want to note especially the negative contribution of pessimistic music. Once if you listen to pessimistic music, you rate music as less efficient in obtaining the goal of venting negative emotions. And in contrast, if you listen to nostalgic music, you rate it as contributing positively to the efficiency, although this significantly diminishes once you add music importance. And now we go on to the conclusions. We can see that music is generally very important in people's lives. It is highly useful in obtaining well-being goals, even in highly stressful times, and this is consistent cross-culturally. Effects of culture in our sample were very small in terms of music use, and in terms of the other activities, there were larger differences, namely in the rated efficiency of using information seeking and spirituality. Music is more effective than or equal to other activities, and it has the widest effect, that is, it covers more goals. Closest to it are entertainment and things one likes to do, especially for diversion and enjoyment, but these are not as useful for venting negative emotions. The use of music for these goals is relatively stable across ages and gender. We did find some age effects, especially for enjoyment. It is more efficient for younger participants, and on the other hand, for obtaining togetherness and reducing loneliness, it is more efficient for the older age group. It is interesting that in most other activities there is an increase or decline with age and small differences by gender, differences that we did not find at all in terms of music use in our sample. The most important variable for predicting whether music would be efficient for obtaining the goals important for you is how much is music important in your life. We found a very interesting relationship between listening to pessimistic or nostalgic music in the case of collectivistic cultures and distress. I could not show you the full analysis here, but I think this should be explored further to understand the association. Does distress lead you to listen to this type of music, or maybe listening to this music is maladaptive and increases your distress, or maybe they are both driven by a third variable? We found that balcony singing and hand clapping was effective in improving mood and feeling of togetherness, but its use was less widespread in comparison to what could be predicted from the widespread media coverage this activity obtained. Some caveats: our samples are not representative and might be biased towards people interested in music and engaging in music, and some countries are underrepresented, and the other caveats you can read for yourself. Further questions: music listening versus active music engagement. This is something we cannot compare in our sample. We can go deeper into individual countries, given that there were differences in severity of COVID and measures taken to prevent it. More importantly, within countries, it would be a good idea to get a better representation of groups such as minorities, which is something we already see in Israel, that we have some differences in the responses of minority groups, albeit small ones. We would like to understand better what drives the rating of importance of music in one's life beyond musical training, which is something that we did see in our sample. There is a correlation of 0.3 between music training and the importance of music in one's life, but there are many other variables that could contribute to this important factor. We're now at the center of analyzing the musical and textual aspects of the songs that helped people cope with the lockdown. We already see some interesting patterns, such as use of older songs and relatively slow in tempo and low in arousal, and a lot of local or folk music. I want to thank my many collaborators, and I open the floor for questions and ideas. Thank you.